hospital and doctor's offices, receiving treatment for what he called his spells. These were episodes in which he experienced dry mouth, a burning sensation in his throat, and sudden exhaustion. By July 2018, he had concluded that Melody was most likely behind these undiagnosed health issues. The day before he died, Gary took a video of a plate Melody had smashed in a rage. He had left it in the basement instead of carrying it upstairs to be washed. Her statement at that time was something like, "I cannot wait until the day you're dead."
Forget to take it upstairs.
It's a nice compliment.
A minor temper tantrum.
Can't wait until you're dead.
Of course, I had supper tonight and it was 6 for me, so I'm sure I'll be feeling poorly here in minutes. But we'll see.
What else? Parem pula.
When you shrink the
Draga
world,
mea, eu
no
am fost
robbery,
tentativ, n-am făcut copii,
no home
pentru că nu
invasions,
de treaba mea.
no enemies,
Sunt curios.
no road rage, nothing like that. When you shrink the world, in a case like this, husband and wife, wife kills husband, husband dies. The answer to the question, who did it, sits right there. Melody Walker Ferris.
The state prosecutors had a strong circumstantial case against Melody Ferris, but when it came to outlining a clear theory of the crime itself, the physical evidence was lacking. They posited that the blood droplets leading from the kitchen into the basement where the projectile was found suggested that Melody must have shot Gary at least twice inside the house and then moved him to the burn pile, though the blood found in the house was limited. Investigators did not locate the kind of spatter stains one would expect to find at the scene of a homicide with multiple gunshot wounds. Perhaps the most significant gap in the state's theory was how Melody, at roughly 120 pounds, could have moved her husband at 6'3" and over 300 pounds over 100 yards from the house to the burn pile. There were two ways that they claimed she could have done so: the RTE and the small tractor. Scott testified that the Kubota was parked in an unusual position when he began searching for his father on July 5th. It was sitting next to the lean-to shed instead of under the overhang where it was nearly always parked overnight. There were small droplets of blood found on the side step that came back as a match to Gary. Melody's DNA was identified on the shifter of the truck. However, touch DNA swabs were collected from 9 points on the tractor, including the steering wheel, motor control, directional shifter, and ignition key. The tractor was covered in blue star. There were no further stains detected. Results on the RTE were similar. There was no indication that it had been used to transport Gary after the murder. The defense was also quick to point out that the landscaping outside of the house, from the back doors into the basement towards the woods, were untouched. The perfectly manicured lawn remained unmarked by any tracks from an RTE, a tractor, or anything else. All four of those children stand at their mother's trial. The eldest, Christopher, Scott, and Emily, testified to the prosecution. They spoke of the tensions in a broken marriage and the years of dysfunction, anger, and affairs. The deep-rooted issues were traced to 2011, after Melody's first affair and Gary's divorce trial. The children knew she continued her extramarital activities and that it was impacting the entire family and causing chronic emotional anguish.
He told me that he was very depressed, and he said that each day with my mother was pretty much the worst day of his life. Like every day was the worst day of his life.
But you do believe in your heart that your mother loved your father. Yes?
Don't run away. You wanna get involved? I'm involved.
So, how about on July the 3rd of 2018. Do you believe that your mother loves your father?
Chris and Scott both spoke of their father's mysterious health episodes they called spells. Gary's suspicions that they were caused by nothing grew in the weeks and days before his death. Gary told his sons about the allegedly poisoned cookies. Scott told the jury about his mother's outburst the day before the murder, when she smashed a dirty plate that his father had left out.
So, the best way I can describe it was he would get very weak. He talked very thick tongue, like his tongue was swollen up. And, some people would think he was drunk, the way he kind of slurred, but he just got very exhausted and wanted to go lay down. And when he would have them, that's what he did. He would go and lay down, you know, either on the couch or go lay in bed, and he would sleep for a couple hours. He's been to the doctor. He went to his physician all the time. They thought it was a vitamin B deficiency and maybe a testosterone problem. Or nobody could figure out what was causing the spells. And this was a bad one. I was worried for the way he was acting. So he stayed in the hospital, I want to say 1 or 2 days. He said, Chris, poison me.
And what was your reaction?
I said, excuse me. He said, well, spent the day screaming at me, and I was watching TV, and all of a sudden she brings me down to cookies. I ate the cookies, and my throat started burning, and I started feeling bad. And I told her, are you I'm paranoid or something, some paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what he said. He kind of shrugged it off. And that's what he said. My dad was on the other side of the property, and she came out of my dad's office doors and screaming and cussing, and she threw a plate up against the wall of the house, and she screamed, I can't wait to the day he fucking dies. I can't wait till the day I don't have to live with him anymore.
In retrospect, it was all too obvious that the family was headed towards the kind of tragedy they experienced when Gary was found underlined thing. However, at that time, it was nonetheless shocking that evidence was involved.
She said, well, your dad is missing. And I said, what do you mean he's missing? And she said, well, we're looking for him and we can't find him anywhere. And I said, well, go look. Is are his clothes still there? Is his CPAP machine still there? Like, did he leave? And, like, did he just leave? Like, you know, and I said, go look for that stuff. Look for his keys, look for his phone, and for his wallet. Like, go look for that stuff. And she just kind of was like, okay, get off the bed.
Okay, this one.
And I started walking that way, and I believe I got either halfway across the dam or got to the other side, and then Melody called me. And she called me and asked, have you thrown a dead goat on the burn pile? I'm like, no, we haven't had anything to die, and also I wouldn't throw it on the burn pile. And she said, well, come up here and look at this. And I walk up and look, and I can already start seeing bones. And then I look down, and it appeared to me that it was the inside of a skull. The backside was gone. And you can see like the little blood vessels, I think it was, but it didn't look like a rock or something. So I grabbed a very, very small corner of it and I lifted it up just enough to where I saw teeth in the eye socket, and I immediately put it right back. And, you know, I was crouched down, and she was standing right there next to me. And I raised up, I put my hand across the chest and push her back and go, these are human remains. I can call 911 right now. Nobody's allowed down here.
Melody's behavior following the discovery only served to heighten suspicions.
Reaction to finding out her, mom had a heart attack, her dad complete different reaction to what paramedic and deputy said. Yes, those were human remains.
At the time, my brain had kind of already switched to thinking something had happened to him that wasn't falling in a fire.
Why did it switch?
Because of my mother's behavior when the police were there and just how she was acting.
What was that behavior? How was she acting?
Just not like somebody whose husband had just been found in a burn pile.
Your mama, like, things aren't lining up. Your story, because, like, she would start going into, like, well, when Scott reached down and picked up your daddy's skull, and I was just like, that's the thing, is, like, things aren't lining up. Like, your story's different than their story, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And the conversation did not end well. She ended up storming out.
Both of Gary's sons were asked directly if they had any part in their father's death. They were, after all, the two individuals with the size and strength necessary to feasibly move their father into the woodland. They were also the two suspects that Melody and her defense team repeatedly alleged could be the real killer.
Did you have anything to do with the murder of your father?
No.
Did you have anything to do with the concealment of your father and the grandfather of your children?
No.
2 pieces of rum polo.
I absolutely did not murder my father. Without a doubt, I loved him.
Don't dare touch my can.
Look at me. Did you have anything to do to help your mother dispose of and burn your father?
Absolutely not.
Tell me, not me.
No.
Flashball, där var det.
Like I said, I love my father. He was the backbone.
The defense pointed the finger primarily at Scott Ferris, who they believed made up the story of finding a gun in the house. That was a convenient lie to frame his mother. Law enforcement did not perform any forensic testing on his locked apartment above the barn. Experts testified that they focused on areas with visible indications of life, such as the stairs in the basement room. But the defense pointed to Scott's bathroom, which should have been tested for the opposite reason. It was found to be extremely clean, suspiciously clean. This, they said, was uncharacteristic of a single man who started living above the barn. But what was more curious was what was found in his nightstand. A box of .38 caliber ammunition. Scott did not own a gun that would fire it. They pointed again to what Melody had told detectives in July 2018, that Scott conveniently stated that his .38 caliber handgun had been stolen from his home in Columbus years earlier during a break-in and robbery. No police report was ever filed with law enforcement in Columbus to support this claim. So, where was his gun? Scott, of course, was also the one to spot his father's remains in the burn pile and stated with certainty that they were even remains. Prior to that discovery, he had kept his trail camera in the woods, which was set up to hide his gear. He testified that he found nothing of that. So he deleted the images off of the SD card. The final images were recovered by law enforcement. They showed him walking past and then approaching his camera. Not exactly incriminating footage, though his choice to delete the images was that. If Scott was the killer, what the defense could not explain was the movement of Gary's son the morning after he must have been killed. As Gary moved around the property between 7 and 9 a.m., Melody was the only other person known who had a car. Scott had never transferred early around the golf that morning at just before 7 a.m. For the prosecution, Chris, Emily, and Scott also recalled their mother's unwillingness even if she included for her husband of 38 years. To Chris, she reportedly said, "Why have a funeral when there's nothing left?" They also asserted that she became aggressive
get a lot of rum polo match today.
By their father.
Or die.
repeatedly did for repayment. Emily testified that her mother was insistent on handle a letter in the court that confirmed Gary's death. Paperwork that could be potentially used to claim his life insurance. It was this life insurance policy that the prosecutors claimed was Melody's motive. Although Gary had earned millions during his career, the family had managed to spend money nearly as quickly as he made it. Within a year of his death, with his income no longer coming in, the farm went into foreclosure. The defense argued that this meant that he was a senseless for Melody. He was worse off after the death. However, Gary's life insurance policies, including additional amounts payable in the event of an accidental death, as well as equity in his firm and his 401k, totaled over $2 million. They would be proved if Gary had indeed passed away in a tragic accident. Melody's defense team aimed to demonstrate that the source of the Bears family dysfunction was not this fight. It was far more complicated than that. They reiterated issues with Christopher's drinking and stealing. They judged Scott for still living at home, and Emily for relying on her father to purchase a new house. Money was a motivating factor for each of them, they argued, not just Melody. They also drew attention to Gary's longtime secretary, a woman named Angela Phillips. Angela had worked for Gary for 28 years, even coming with him when he was transferred to Atlanta to open the first office there.
When you moved to Georgia, did your relationship with Gary ever cross from professional to personal?
Unfortunately, it has. And then, unfortunately, there were a couple of instances where, you know, long hours, sometimes cross a line.
And it became physical?
Yeah.
Angela testified that her romantic relationship with Gary was short-lived. It had taken place only when they were younger, in the 90s, and she could not recall if they ever slept together. The two had remained close friends. She recalled receiving a phone call from him to inform her of Gary's death.
I couldn't fathom any way that he died there. She suggested maybe he had a spell and fell in. And that didn't make any sense to me. His spells were never bad enough that he would fall into a fire and not be able to pull himself out. And I asked, would there be an autopsy? To which she said, oh, there's not enough remains for autopsy. Which just made his blood turn cold and still does.
That had passed since Melody's arrest, her relationship with Rusty Barton had come to an end. Whether their loyalty to each other had faded, however, was still an open question. The two were known to be on the phone together on the night of the murder. His alibi for the time period was supported by receipts from shopping trips he made around his home in Tennessee during that time, proving he was nowhere near the farm on Purcell Lane. Investigators did find, however, that he performed curious internet searches in the wake of the murder, including, if the police have a cell phone number, can they get all of your text messages?
When it comes to your curious things at this moment, how much love do you have for her? That's what you have to do first. Tell me how much love you have for her. Do you love her? But you did love her in the past, correct? You were in love with her, Arizona. She was in love with you, Arizona.
Their romance had developed under the nose of his stepmother, Melody's second cousin, Melody. Rusty spoke of how heartbroken Melody had been to learn of being married. She was a God-fearing woman who would never have approved of their relationship. Rusty testified that he owned over 40 firearms, but all of his family had been killed. His father had also owned guns, however, which remained in the home he had shared with Martin Green, the same house that Melody would often visit.
See the photo of the day. When the defendant comes to Martin Green's house or home, and when she finally had access to the home, come and go as she full access everywhere in the house. Even come to the house when Martha Jane's not there.
Yes.
Rusty also formally recanted the bombshell statement he made to law enforcement years prior when he recalled never telling them that Gary was in the burn pile. He told the jury that he made the statement under duress. Since that time, he had tried repeatedly to clarify the statement. He was horrified that it had been unfairly evidence against Melanie that was eliminated for him.
June of 2019, we call it really recanting. You're just trying to better explain what she said to you, right? And when she said it.
What was said was not changed. It was just when it was said.
Okay. So kind of better explain it. Because that's a lot of what this case is coming down to. The district attorney is putting their case on the words that come out of your mouth. So I need you to explain those words back to your mouth.
She said those words to me. I heard them. I just, in my confusion and pressure of, I got to do something. You know, they're going to arrest me. They're going to ruin my name. They're going to put me, you know, line me up. It came out because Bobby didn't even know I was going to say that.
Bobby didn't even know?
No.
So that's just what you felt like you had to do to preserve yourself?
Yes.
But then you tried to explain later that, yes, she told you about that. That was after Gary was already found, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The gun used to kill Gary Ferris was never found. Law enforcement searched the property thoroughly, even sending divers to skim the Farb's pond. Prosecutors continued to point to Scott's statements made immediately following the murder, that he had spotted a handgun in the basement of the house that was unaccounted for. Over 5 years later, Chris's wife, Jenna, who by the time of the trial had become his ex-wife, claimed also to have seen a handgun in the family home. Her description of the firearm varied from the one offered by Scott. She stated that the gun was inside a cadenza drawer in the basement, a different location to where Scott had reportedly seen a gun. Law enforcement did not locate this firearm if it was, in fact, the same gun. They could not point definitively to the origin of the murder weapon. That is, until over 1 week into the trial, when a county detective received a call from Martha Jane Barton. In this surprise development, the state police had their answer.
This is Baltimore in Tennessee. I'm sure you're doing the case of Member Parish that's going on right now. The J.C. Hope and Hayes came to earlier the GBI case. They never asked me if we needed she was here, and I told her for several weeks before that I shouldn't have, but she had waited. And I told her what those two guys
Martha Jane took the stand a few days later. She had viewed some of the trial online, only learning of Rusty and Melanie's affair at that time. She testified that she was something special in a leather holster had been given to her by her husband in the 1970s. Melanie knew where she had kept it. The gun had kept on it.
Up to that point, has anybody told you not to watch it?
No.
And did you see Rusty testify?
I saw part of his too.
How did that make you feel?
Disappointed.
Did the 38 special pistol, I'm going to ask you some questions. Miss Robin, did the pistol go missing?
It did.
Did you start looking for things in your house? How much did you tear your house up and things in the house?
Well, I knew that it was only upstairs.
She recounted calling him to report the missing
On that one.
I told him that I had done it.
biggest case was made by the last Amanda Bruce, formerly Amanda. She sister of her siblings as financial leeches, and she supported her mother's claim of innocence.
I approach things differently than my siblings did.
What does that mean?
Meaning I never wanted anything in return for his love. I just, especially right before he died, I just wanted a mother and a father. And that was it. I didn't want any more of the trauma. I didn't want any more of their marital problems. I didn't want to deal with any of it. I just wanted a mom and a dad.
And how did you steal from your dad?
Well, my mother made it very apparent. There was never any dirty laundry. Both of them weren't willing to air out to all of their children. There was no boundary. Yeah.
So he would say, Chris is going to
Expect another one, but
Correct.
And was that in the months and weeks leading up to his death?
Years.
For years?
It's always been a problem for as long as I can remember.
After discussing Chris's guilt, he spoke about the Scots.
So back to Scott, and how did it come to pass that you ended up on the farm that you knew of?
Because he couldn't make it on his own. It was kind of a running joke that he just was always going to he'd complain. Well, Mama told me to do this, or Daddy told me to do that, or I wanted to do that. Like, it's as simple as that. You don't live with your parents. It was... They always said, oh, I'm going to work on the farm. Work on the farm. And he was like, yeah, he did. I mean, I guess. But so did my dad. So did my mom. It was... There was a kid that was living at home. And that was about it.
Do you think you should take advantage of him?
I think anybody who asks their parents for money at the age of 20, 25 are taking advantage of people.
Amanda also offered an explanation for the blood trail in the house. One of the dogs, she said, had bitten her father's hand. He had walked downstairs to the basement before stopping the bleeding. Melody Ferris chose not to testify.
This fucker died without a question.
In closing arguments, the state emphasized that the most obvious explanation was the most likely. Melody had made no secret of wanting her husband dead.
There was blood found in her home. There was a bullet found in her home. She was framed. It was planted. That's not reasonable. She just happened to also be having a long-standing affair. Not only that, but she just so happened to own a 38 revolver and a leather holster that her son's on the Melody's name was called evidence. Because, you know, she has to tell Scott from home. She calls him and she's like, what time are you leaving? The horses got up. And I want you to think about this. In her statements to Detective Hayes and Detective Pike-and-Wall, she talks about these horses getting out. I think it starts like before dinner. You weren't chasing horses. You were murdering your husband. She had to call Scott because she didn't know what time he was. She had to call Scott to see what time he was. Because then, when she said, well, the horses got out, and he's like, okay, I'm coming home. She's like, well, no, that's okay, then why are you home? It doesn't make sense. The horses are the cover-up. It wouldn't have been easy for anyone to move that body. Not Scott by himself, not Chris by himself. Anyone would have needed something.
Yes, Alma, we'll watch some porn with
And
you
you know
later.
what? It's okay if you all think different ways in which she moved his body. One of you could think she used the tractor. One of you could think she used the RTV. One of you could think she literally just got down and rolled in there. It was all downhill. You saw. One of you could think she tied him up like a deer to the back of the RTV and dragged him over there. But he ended up on that burn pile. And a fairy didn't put him there. A murder fairy didn't put him there. No one else. There is no evidence anyone else is on that property.
The defense attempted to discredit the three eldest children, who they argued only knew their father as a gun.
Stop opening the gun in the basement. That gun is corroborated by Mark and James saying that those guns are stuck. Because they're similar. It's right at the shoulder. They're similar. Right. Now, what intelligent human being, if you're planning to commit a murder, stores your murdering weapon in the living quarters of your victim?
Having up one legs.
That is the most asinine thing I have ever heard. If I'm going to murder someone or shoot someone, I'm going to keep my gun close to me, in my part of the house, in my purse, in my pocket, in my car. I'm not going to store it in my husband, according to them, that she despises, behind the couch that he sits on and watches TV, where Scott claims that he sits and watches TV. What sense does that make? Scott and Chris and Emily wanted to get on the stand, or did get on the stand, and basically say, oh, Daddy dearest, I love him so much, I miss him, I can't believe it. While at the same time, you got Chris robbing and blind, and actually saying he was stealing, him admitting that he had used his bank account so he had the account numbers and all that, which is illegal, and he was doing it without Gary's permission. Gary actually texted him and said, your stealing has got to stop. Scott texted Melody saying, is he gone? Wanting to know if Gary was gone so he didn't have to do anything anymore. That is not, those aren't the text messages of somebody who truly loves this man. No, that was just their bank. And he didn't get into the settlement.
To discredit Martha Jane's assertion that she was missing a gun, they suggested she was angered over the discovery of a gun that had been hidden from her for years.
She was embarrassed. She was furious at this affair that she found out about, essentially on live television. Now everybody involved said she came, she's got to hang her head whenever she goes. Rusty controls the Barton name. So she came up with this lie because of YouTube and this trial being on television. As the only way she came up with it.
Finally and dramatically, the defense hammered away at the gaps in the state's theory of the crime. What they said must have happened was not physically possible.
Starts to become clear why I'm doing it, why I'm dropping the bags. It's actually because it's about to move the bags together. But I want you to know that it starts to become very impossible. When you add this up, that someone who weighs 120 pounds that is it now. And it's over. There was a person on the top and that's not and it's 20 pounds.
Oh my god. Can I kill this fucking guy alone, please?
That's all. The heaviest now of all that they have provided.
Fuck off. Kill him or fuck off.
With no ever happened by law. Fairy tales he was tractor in the property, Marky didn't. But as my client,
Ahora que estamos muertos de cuatro y yo no me encuentro ni yo la tiene que tener que tener.
as my partner very clearly laid out to you. They didn't do their job. They provided no way that she could have done.
The jury deliberated for a handful of hours over the next 2 days. On the third, they put in a full day of discussion, finally delivering their verdict.
Can you catch up with that guy? He was only good for running. What the fuck?
As the count 5, find the defendant guilty.
Bă, dar du-te morți, mă,
As
odată.
to count 4, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 3, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 2, find the defendant guilty. And we, the jury, as to count 1, find the defendant guilty.
The verdict was not much of a shock to many who had closely followed the evidence presented at trial. What was shocking was the speech delivered in the court weeks later by Melody Harris after her sentencing hearing. She proclaimed that after 6 years and a 3-week-long trial, she was finally ready to reveal what she knew. She really was scary.
I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone. I want the world to know who did this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth. And has that ever been proven to be the truth in this case? Not only did I know who did it, I know Scott killed his mother. That my husband, the father of Chris, Emily, and Amanda. He didn't feed Daddy and our grandchildren. Scott, this is unforgivable. Scott is dead. And our life of loving and protecting you. But still, I refuse to cover for
Bă,
you.
dar cum morți, mă, ți-ai mai lovit cu coada aia de acolo, bă?
Your mom begged me to take the blame for this. She said after she talked to you after Gary died that she knew he had done it. Her exact words were, you as his mother, you have to take blame for this. And I told her no, that I couldn't. I still have 3 of the children, grandchildren, and this is not a stone shell or diamond ring that you call all of it.
Mamă, frate, din Super Armor, mă, du-te morți, mă, de
But not before she had delivered her most
Ce pula mea?
accusations.
Stai, săracul locul.
She does have the possibility of cool. That is the tragic case of the road. Thank you once again for joining us. And a special thanks to Karen and Turtle 1660 for joining our Mother's Lounge. I'm Kevin, and you just thought lounge. And I'll see you in the next one.
Adoro quando fai.
On the evening of September 17, 2023, police in Romeoville, Illinois, made a gruesome and heartbreaking discovery inside the family home.
I need more units here.
What followed was a rapidly unfolding investigation that uncovered a truly bizarre and disturbing murder plot and a motive that no one saw coming. Hi there, I'm Kevin, and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today's case takes some unexpected turns. The story unravels in only a few days. It took investigators an entire year, however, to put together all of the twisted pieces. Let's take a look. Thursday, September 17, 2023, two calls were placed to law enforcement by concerned family members in Romeoville, Illinois. The first was from Brianna Bartolome, the sister of 31-year-old Zoraida. She and her husband Alberto Roland had been unreachable all day. Alberto had failed to turn up for his early shift at work. A second call was placed by Zoraida's mother.
I'm calling for my daughter, Zoraida Bartolome. She lives on Concord Avenue, Romeoville, Illinois, and we haven't heard from her or her husband or her children in the whole day. No answering the phone. If somebody can go by the house and check them, so the husband, they called from his work that he didn't show up to work. And he never, he's always at work.
Okay, give me 1 second. Did you last hear from your daughter? But when did you last talk to her? Yesterday? Last night? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna send officers over to check on her and somebody will give you a call back, okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. That's what we're here for.
Police arrived at the family home on the 500 block of Concord Avenue at around 8:43 p.m. Welcome back. There was no response to the door and no sign of movement inside the windows. Officers proceeded to peer inside the windows and explore the property. Almost all the lights were off, but through the front picture window, they could see a TV and coffee table have been knocked over. When officers ventured towards the back door and entered through the porch, they made a disturbing discovery.
Onda ce pula mea de range ai tu cu vecina aia de punci?
This one's open.
Wow, o să mă dăm pace.
Just inside the door, officers viewed a light inside. It was clear that something horrendous had occurred inside.
I got 2 dead dogs, TV's knocked over, and the cops are
What they couldn't know was whether there was anyone remaining alive inside the home, nor if they were free of any threat when they
Poți să-l opresc, mă, zici cu stab-ul, mă. Ăla, știu. Sper că stai a luat pula.
No worries, I want to report them to the back. I got enough units to ready to go. You with me? You guys hold the front from position or cover, please. I don't know if anybody's in there or not. You know, hey, one of you guys hold this one. One of you guys hold the front. No, not that I know of.
You just fucked off.
Hey, Ron. Yep. Here's what we're gonna do, okay? I'm gonna boot it. We're gonna go nice and slow, right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dai, giro per telefono, boss, non plece.
I'm going over your right shoulder. You watch our 6 as we move through the house, okay? Corey, come over here, cover this door. This window.
Stare. Good motherfucker.
I got one. Here, cover the window.
Dai, culo mea, nu mai te distrate acum. Iarăși, mă. Frenzy, băi, să mă uit. Lasă-mă să-mi facă, bă, să mă duc. Bă, porfată. Unde-s banii, mă? Unde-s banii cât au de bani? Un an de politic.
Alberto Roman in a hallway. A bedroom door and within Yolanda was discovered dead, her hands covering her face. The couple's son, 10-year-old Adriel and 7-year-old looking killed on the bed. There were nearly 24 shell casings scattered throughout the house. One more gunman entered the home.
Oh, fuck me.
I never saw the kids out drowned or very bad.
Toată lumea vine să-mi bată, păi nu te suportă nimeni, boss. 3 persoane care dă din asta. Nu știu ce ai făcut.
Outings in the backyard a lot of times were just family. And both of them were
Probably a good idea to get the fuck out of here, bro.
Neighbors were understandably shocked at the news of the murders. The couple had only
Wants to
recently
get involved.
moved to the area, having achieved their dream of buying their family home in
April
of that year. Both Soraya and Alberto worked full-time. She inquired people about
Bă, muie, vin și tu băga mea pula în tine, de prost. Pula.
Gemma told police that the couple lived for their children. There had been problems in the marriage, but they had stayed together for the sake of their boys. After the purchase of the house, the family had been in good spirits. The couple did not have a criminal history. They were not struggling financially. Neither of them even owned a gun. At the scene, investigators spoke with Soraya's brother, who arrived unaware of the calls for welfare checks made by both his mother and sister. He could not think of a single person that would have wished to harm the family. Inside the house, the shell casings in a 9mm pistol littered the floors. Furniture had been knocked over and items broken. Despite the damage, it did not appear that there had been a struggle. The victims seemed to have been caught unaware or had hidden in place from the shooter. Investigators believe that the shooter had attempted to take the defense and set up his crime by knocking over furniture and spraying profanity in the living room. On the living room wall, the individual had his marks before the police can get in trouble, and it was abandoned. Eventually, crime scene experts were able to recreate a general sequence of events. They believed that the murders had occurred in the night. Alberto, who worked nights during the week, was awake when the shooter attempted to make entry. Zoraida and the boys were likely in the bedroom sleeping. Perhaps one or more of the children had been having trouble sleeping and so had been tucked into their mother's bed, where they were later found. Checking on noise from the back door, Alberto was shot and injured in the hallway. He ran towards the bedroom. The intruder shot him 5 more times before he could reach his wife and sons. It was clear that the family had been targeted. Any question that the killing could have been a murder-suicide was ruled out quickly. The murder weapon was not found in the house.
Sleeping time, okay.
Preliminary investigation leads police to believe this happened between 9 p.m. on Saturday and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. We are not asking anybody to shelter in place. We are not actively looking for anybody in the area. But we do always ask our residents to have a good sense of self-awareness and to report anything that they might see as suspicious.
Investigators speaking with co-workers of Zoraida's facility developed a quickly. They discovered that the 31-year-old mother had shared concerns with the colleague over threatening text messages that she had been receiving in the weeks before her death. Beginning in June of that year, these messages warned her away from her entanglement with another co-worker at the Avanti facility, a man named Nathaniel Huey Jr. Zoraida and Nate had been involved in a romantic affair for about 4 months. Alberto was reportedly aware of previous instances when his wife had stepped out on their marriage. It wasn't a desirable arrangement, but the two reportedly decided to stay together for the children, despite Zoraida's infidelity. Only weeks after she started seeing Nate, the anonymous messages began. Over time, as she ignored them, the nature of the threats escalated. They warned her that Nate was about to be the center of a murder investigation. The messages also accused Zoraida of putting her children in danger by seeing him. 1 week before the murders, Alberto, too, received threats from an unknown number. This will be the last I say this, Alberto. This stupid girl will be the reason we have no children. Detectives were here to speak with Nathaniel Huey. They've been at work.
So when you guys, are you married? So a church married, but not pagan married.
Nate and the woman called his wife, Ermelinda Gemma, had been together for 8 years. They lived together along with Ermelinda's adult daughters. The two had held a church ceremony but never filed for a marriage license. Occasionally, he referred to her instead as his fiancée. But with Zoraida, Nate admitted to having a special connection. He called her an angel and would never have wished her any harm, he said.
We're gonna find your text messages and we're gonna find that stuff. And I want you to survive that fight or something. I don't I mean, it's sort of how you like, you know, worried and scared. Worried and
Nate poorly explained his affection for Zoraida and the nature of their relationship. According to Brianna, her sister had referred to Nate as her soulmate. She compared their relationship to that of Romeo and Juliet. At Nate's workstation, police found a note in Zoraida's handwriting, which read, "You mean so much to me, like, I don't think you understand how much I actually love you."
I'm sure you would like to see it salvaged stuff.
Despite his apparent affection for Zoraida, investigators remained suspicious of Nate WOOOW. They were certain that there was more to his story than he was willing to offer. In addition to his work at the manufacturing plant, Nate also registered his own business called Black Bear Security LLC. Advertisements offered personal and business security services as well as beverages. Photos of Nate on social media showed him posing with rifles and other guns. And as it turns out, Nate was barred from legally owning firearms. This was imposed following a battery charge against him in 2016. He nonetheless continued to advertise his security services and posted photos of himself armed online. Officers also found that on September 13th, 2 days before the murders, Nate had left work early and hadn't returned until the day after it had occurred. Co-workers told officers that there had been some tension between Zoraida and him before he took off, and the snake assessment. One of Ermelinda's daughters described her to law enforcement as a furry. She said his paranoia and strange behavior had been increasing in the weeks before the murder. Nate often spoke of people who were after him, she said. She also described how he would place black electrical tape over the mobile doorbell and even the red light on the prison, presumably believing that people were watching him. So, police began to monitor Nate's movements. As they did so, they tracked him to a Walmart parking lot, where they watched as he met a former security colleague and passed over a large black duffel bag. Weeks later, police tracked down that bag and confirmed their suspicions. It contained a long list of items, including 11 rounds of .45 ACP ammunition, 3 Glock magazines, 2 rifles, 2 soft body armor plates, a knife, black zip ties, and other related items. However, they did not find a 9mm gun, such as the one used in the murders. The same evening that Nate was visited at work, officers arrived at his home to speak with his fiancée, Ermelinda.
Hello. Hi, Ermelinda. My name is Detective Garcia from the Romeo Police Department. Detective Wagner. I know you know what's going on. I know you were talking on the phone. That's okay. Does he live here with you? How long you guys been together? Okay. We'll investigate it. We have possession of some phones, okay? And in those phones, we're doing what is called a phone dump. So what happens is if anybody's on text now, you can download, for example, text now, we can retrieve those messages. We have retrieved those messages. Alright, we've read them. It's clear that somebody's pretty upset at the victim. Okay? Is there any way that these text messages are going to come back? Or your name, or your phone, or anything associated with that?
Look at the juicy rompolo. Rompopolo. Rompopolo.
Where you're comfortable, right?
Tämä rompopolo, no?
Oh yeah, but we're
Mitä oil is prosta.
I'm not saying I'm not saying the house. We're talking out over here.
No,
okay with that? We can go buy my car.
Okay.
Ermelinda, a 50-year-old mother of 5, agreed to sit with officers inside their cruiser and answer their questions. When they pulled over to an agreed spot, she explained that she had just been on the phone with Nate when he was approached by police. While they spoke, she overheard them reference an affair, she said. It was the first time she had heard of it.
Why are you scared of him?
Because
why are you scared right now?
Because when I called him, because I was scared, I didn't know where he was.
I didn't know what
He
to do,
said,
so I
"Someone's
shot him
following
14
me."
times.
So I called and I called. And then I heard him say, "Why are you following me? Do you want to search the car?" And then someone said to him,
And then I lost
"There
my
are
shit.
messages from you, and it's because her husband found out you were having an affair." And I didn't know that
You didn't know what?
he was having an affair.
Okay.
No.
When did you find that out? Right now?
So Rafael.
Okay. When's the last time that he had an affair?
Let's fry some chicken.
I know it's not the first time.
No, it's not.
Okay. When's the last time you knew he had an affair?
When we first started dating.
2015?
Good shit, huh?
From 15 to maybe 17.
He's had multiple affairs while you two have been together.
I was hoping that they were done. I was hoping to trust, because you have to.
When you find out about them, like what happened? Did you guys get into arguments? Did you talk about the women that he's having affairs with?
No, not what.
I don't know. You were man along the line?
Paini katana on the double.
Ermelinda stated that she had heard the name Zoraida Bartolome before. She had seen it appear on Nate's phone later when a call came through.
What about by the name of Alberto Rolon?
Have I ever heard of a man? No.
Have you ever met Zoraida? Seen a picture of her?
I lost my voice.
So that name comes up to you because you saw it.
Well, really, that name was something I thought.
Was the person calling? Okay.
More than once. And it said mom. I thought it was Bartholomew.
So when we asked your husband if he knew this person, Zoraida, he said, I've never heard that name. Why would he be lying to us?
Oh, the fucking ranger, that's
Ethan?
I thought that you guys said to him he was having an affair. Somebody said he's having an affair.
Okay. Well, that is probably very accurate.
What you guys are hearing something else and I'm making it up. It's not. So are you guys saying that you're trying to find out who was the husband?
We're trying to find out who was involved. So we're talking to everyone, we're talking to you, we're talking to other people, because as you may be aware, people have to be, right? So we don't know. What I would like to ask you is, either Friday or Saturday night, did you go out with friends?
Friday night? No, he was with me.
Saturday.
No.
Nate was at home with her on both Friday and Saturday nights, he said. Although they slept in different areas of the house, Ermelinda was insistent that they would not have been able to leave the house without her daughter. Her daughter would also report to coronavirus, she said.
So,
did you go anywhere Saturday?
I was at work. No, every night. It's about a year. I don't know what the information is that, tries to do is to calm the mind and stop us fighting. So, don't you just actually fight with somebody?
Remember when we first met you at the door, I told you that we had some text messages with phone numbers, and I found out who those phone numbers belong to. Is there any reason why those numbers will come back to you? I don't know that yet. I'm looking into it, but what I'm saying is there any reason why they would come back to you?
While investigators sought to track the origin of the threatening text messages, they continued to keep eyes on Nate Huey. They requested permission to examine the contents of Nate's cell phone and to take a DNA sample.
Right, asking if you were consent. Can I type up the top between you and the between you, so we have both sides. Trying to eliminate you if it's okay. No, we take the phone, plug it in, and take it out. That's just even better. No, I believe you. The boss is called right away, and they're like, well, we'd like to see if we can get this stuff from your end. Get behind you. Back it back. Maybe your husband got wait a minute, pull it off. I mean, is it on our side of it, it's their phone? We have to go through phone. But the fastest way we can send it pull off the phone. And again, explain to the family. I mean, get together and see this girl last. I'm sure that, you know, if you're an outsider looking in, and so I'd like to eliminate that. I'd like to say, well, no, we looked through stuff, we didn't have nothing to do with it, we're done with it. I agree with you, but again, there's it would take us, you know, a couple hours to pull information off the phone that could eliminate you as a suspect, like right from the start. It's up to you.
It feels like you're really suspecting of me. How about this? How about I come see you guys later today after work or something like that? I got fucking other shit in there that I don't necessarily want you to be like looking at. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. But again,
I promise you, I don't care what you look at. No, it's not like fucking like freak shit like that or anything.
One last thing, before we drive out of the parking lot, will you give us consent to look in your Denali just for like blood or something?
There's no blood in my car that I haven't done anything.
I believe you,
But it's so now we're at the point where we just got to check off everything off our list so that there's, you know, like I said, you're in a relationship with her, and that's what we're going off of, okay? Yeah. And we want to be as thorough as possible, and part of being thorough is that we just want to take a look inside.
That's just a route that I don't rather go with. I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just saying, like, I think it's just better if, at this point, not
It's crazy. Yeah, I get you. No, I get you. Yeah.
I don't doubt you can do homework. I want you to do your homework. But I'm just telling you, like, I want to make sure that I'm not I don't know. Like, it's like, it's kind of come back so many times.
Yeah, I know it's the boss has told us, we weren't looking forward to it. Unfortunately, we got stuck doing it. So, we're gonna go. Get you off our list so we can be done with that.
He also agreed to meet with the detectives at the station following his shift to hand over his cell phone and allow for a search of his SUV. After leaving work, noticing that police were following him on the way, he stopped to speak with an officer.
Things under the investigation, we're going to do it right after you're done off of work. I don't know what you guys discussed, but you may want to let them know that you're going to go home and eat, and then you're going to meet. You have his work phone number?
When asked about the threatening messages he sent to Zoraida and Alberto, he told them he didn't know about those, but he admitted that he received random-ass messages from people that were coming after him. Nate stated that they were voluntary and that they always do stuff to his phone. He refused to state what exactly that was, but he did say that they had high-tech capabilities. After viewing the data from Mr. Wright, these statements make a lot of sense. Indeed, the messages were though for a longer period than Zoraida and Alberto. Evidently, they had not discussed things directly with each other. For Nate, these messages included threats that if he did not follow the directions provided, he would be stopped within the year. Nate believed these messages from members of a powerful drug cartel composed of violent individuals of Mexico and Bulgaria. These individuals were convinced that he was under constant surveillance by this criminal organization. He believed that he would have their wishes as an unwilling member of their operation. Moreover, he was told that he had been infiltrated by a mole. There was someone in his life who was planning to attack him. The name of that individual would be revealed in time. Nate's correspondence with his allegedly powerful criminal indicated that he did not question the information being provided or the identities of his criminal contacts. He truly believed that he was working with this cartel and that his life was in danger. On September 19th, he and Irma Lindbergh hired a lawyer. Then he met his mother at an apartment while Irma was waiting in the car outside. There, he confessed to killing the baby. When asked why, he said, "Because people were after me, and believed the kids were better off dead than alive without parents." It is not clear what Nate's mother did with that information immediately after receiving it. An officer stopped Ermelinda outside of her home as she was about to get into her black Chevy Valet. A license plate reader had captured her car in Romeoville at 3:48 a.m. on the day of the murders, and police were in the process of getting a search warrant.
It's evidence. Yeah, we're getting a search warrant for it. Okay, so unfortunately you can't touch the car right now. Okay? Alright.
Through ring camera footage and other sources, the vehicle used in the crime was tracked traveling from their home in Streetwood to Zoraida's Romeoville home at the time the murders were thought to have taken place. Nate was seen exiting and re-entering the vehicle from the passenger side. Ermelinda was the driver.
Did you go anywhere Saturday night?
No, I was home. Well, I was off. No, I did not. I was here.
Are you telling me the truth?
Later that day, on September 19th, Nate and Ermelinda fled the state. She told family before leaving that she was frightened of Nate and needed to go with him. After failing to hear anything further, the family reported her as a missing and endangered person the next day. Notifications went out nationally. The couple's images shared with law enforcement and media outlets across the country.
Communicated with a number of her family members, calling them things such as "I love you," "Take care of my grandbabies." She seemed upset. We know without a shadow of a doubt that at the time of the murders in Romeoville, everyone was home sleepy. This has been confirmed by multiple family members. She was identified as a person of interest. Okay, she's a victim, just like the Romeoville family is a victim.
As investigators continued to compile evidence, however, it became apparent that Ermelinda was no victim. Though the investigation has been moving quickly, there had not been enough evidence to make an arrest. Instead, authorities tracked Nate's GMC SUV using first his phone, then license plate readers. A license plate reader in Tulsa, Oklahoma, more than 600 miles from their Illinois home, captured the SUV later on September 20th, and alerted authorities that a murder suspect and potentially a kidnapper were inside. The couple were tracked to a stop at a Walmart, where they purchased a piece of cell phone, hair dye, and other cosmetics. Surveillance showed them holding hands as they walked through the parking lot and smiling as they exited the store. As they got back into the GMC, some police officers switched on their car lights to attempt to stop them and investigate the missing person report. Instead, Nate drove off. The chase continued onto the I-44 when the GMC crashed into another car and then a solid center median. The driver's side door was pinned shut. The GMC caught fire. As officers approached the vehicle, they heard gunshots from within. Ermelinda was pulled from the passenger side of the vehicle. She had been shot but was alive and rushed to the hospital. As the fire threatened to engulf the car, officers tried to smash open the driver's side window by firing beanbags. It became clear that Nate Hewitt was already dead on himself. Ermelinda survived her injuries.
Looks to be an apparent murder-suicide. With a crash. Dangerous murder suspect.
The investigation into the murders continued for a year following the fatal crash. As investigators sorted through Nate's correspondence as well as Ermelinda's data, they pieced together the bizarre murder plot. And they discovered the real source of Nate's paranoia: his fiancée.
Want to craft some weapons.
Since December 2021, she'd created fake phone numbers in multiple online personas to convince her fiancé that he was a part of a Mexican and Bulgarian criminal. She would use these personas to offer details about the others, building up their background stories and relationships amongst each other, as well as their roles within the fictional organization. Some of the personas were bosses and others were hired. A forensic search found data showing that she had researched information about the dark web to prove to Nate that she was a Bulgarian. She would regularly translate words to pretend to speak Bulgarian. Her phone activity also logged into an app secretly to convince him that he was being followed. The initial aim appeared to be to scare him into being faithful, instructing him not to speak to other women. He would intercept messages from Zoraida and others, piquing her jealousy and escalating the elaborate
come on, why the fuck
1 week before the murders, Ermelinda sent threatening text messages to Zoraida and Alberta. On September 13th, after her threats failed to get Zoraida to break things off with Nate, she sent her fiancé a text message through one of her personas, convincing him that Zoraida was the mole and had planned to attack him. He needed to act first. Ermelinda's persona instructed Nate to make the scene appear to be a burglary committed by kids. The messages reassured him that many murders go unsolved. After leaving work early that day, Nate, along with one of his fake contacts, began plotting to kill Zoraida by researching her neighborhood, looking at cameras, and planning how to get in and out of the house, and how to avoid leaving behind any DNA. His wife would drive him there, he told the fake cartel member, not realizing that he was actually messaging his wife. Police believe that Nate died without ever knowing that the cartel was fake, and that the woman he often called his wife was behind the horrific plot to kill his girlfriend. That was the case. Zoraida Barcelona, Alberto Rolando, and the thank you once again for joining me. And a special thanks to Paula Harrow, Leo, RX, Paige Shannon, and your extra support for us here at GD. I'm Kevin. This is Just Stop Now. Oh, that's
That's the antidote.
When 28-year-old Ashley Fallis was rushed to the hospital in the early morning hours of New Year's Day 2012, her family had no doubts as to who had put her there. Only Ashley's husband Tom had been in the room with her when she was struck by a single gunshot. Only Tom, with his temper and controlling nature, would have forced the trigger. But where Ashley's family saw no doubt, law enforcement found plenty. A victim with a complicated history. A crime scene analysis that told two stories at the same time. Witnesses with changing recollections. And years later, new evidence coming to light. Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and welcome to Just Stop Now. Today's case stands at the accused has an unlikely story. There are investigative warrants and even accusations of a police cover-up. But not all cases lead to the same conclusion, and this one offers some surprises along the way. Let's take a look. On Zinfandel Street, Tom and Ashley Fallis were hosting a family-friendly party to celebrate New Year's Eve on December 31st, 2011. Jenna Fox and Joe Raggigan left their daughter's home on Zinfandel at just past 12:30 a.m. It had been a fun night, full of drinks, games, and dancing. But just after ringing in the new year, the mood at the party turned sour. Ashley had told her husband that she was stepping outside with her family for a smoke, although Ashley didn't plan to smoke a cigarette. An argument ensued between the young couple, taking place in front of Ashley's family, who were the only guests that remained at the house. Only an hour earlier, watched adoringly by their guests, the two had danced affectionately to their favorite song. But now, it was the frustrations of their marriage that were on full display. Ashley's family members chimed in. They did not see what the big deal was and appealed to Tom on Ashley's behalf. In response, Tom yelled at them as well. Jenna and Joe were told to get out. The 32-year-old husband and father then retreated to the master bedroom, reportedly slamming the door, in what Joe would later describe as a fit of a rage. Then Jenna and Joe did as they were told, and left the house. Less than 10 minutes after leaving the party, Joe and Jenna they were drawn back by a stream of emergency vehicles and police cars, all running past them at the very house they had just left. When they arrived back using the street, they dropped into an ambulance. Ashley had sustained a single gunshot wound to the head. Her parents shocked and heartbroken by the scene. It was clear what had occurred in the few minutes after they had left the house. Their son-in-law, Tom Fallis, had shot their daughter in an angry rage. To law enforcement at the scene, the situation was not quite so clear-cut. Tom Fallis had been angry with his in-laws when he figuratively threw them from the house that night. He did not think that after a night of drinking, Ashley should step outside with them to partake in further activities. They believed that he was being controlling. Conversely, Tom thought that his in-laws were overstepping. Tom asserted that Ashley's family did not have the full picture. It had been an emotionally trying day for Ashley and Tom before their guests had arrived. When everyone had left the house, the couple's argument picked back up in the bedroom. What had started as a small disagreement then spilled over to bigger issues. According to Tom, Ashley cursed at him. She told him that she would do whatever she wanted to do. Tom responded back, "Fine, just don't do it because your family told you to." Still in mid-argument, Tom was in the closet, he said, ready to change into his pajamas, when he heard Ashley chamber around. She kept her handgun, a Taurus 9mm, under the mattress on the far side of the bed. He started stating, "What are you?" but could not complete his question, because just then he heard the shot. The gun had gone off.
What's the address of your emergency? Okay, sir, listen to me. I've got somebody else getting help on the way, okay? Where's she at?
Inside the bedroom, responders rushed in to provide medical assistance. The Evans Police Department called in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, within a few hours of the emergency call. They did